SlasheR, not too happy with the servers. Definitely some concern there. 100+ ping. Chino also piping in. He said he lives in New Mexico. There's Texas servers unavailable or not working for them. Here's SlasheR's tweet right here. I'm being forced to play on 100+ ping because their Texas server is conveniently unplayable. Pathetic. Someone needs to be held accountable. So whether he gets fined aside for this tweet, Katie, the last time we talked about servers in Call of Duty League, we were praising the league because they had added extra servers and they were taking everything into consideration. But clearly, things may not be as rosy as we thought they were. So what gives?
I mean, at the end of the day, it still seems very clear. Like, yes, they're making improvements. So you always praise that. You always praise the league very clearly trying to make things better. But at the end of the day, it seems very clear that West Coast teams, particularly California-oriented teams, are getting the short end of the stick here. And it's not even so much about what SlasheR was tweeting as TJ. Very specifically, there was a search and destroy. It blew up all over Twitter. It was all over Reddit for good reason. Because Merc and Maven were casting that series in that search and destroy. We were on Gunrunner, and there was a point where TJ went to throw a Semtex into green. If you're not familiar, green is literally a building right in the middle of the map. He goes to throw the Semtex over a box into green. And the Semtex, as it looked on broadcast, it looked like TJ threw the Semtex into the box and then stared at it and waited for it to blow up, and then he died. Even Maven said, that may be the worst play I've ever seen in Call of Duty. And then TJ posted the clip on his screen of what actually happened, Arda, and he threw the Semtex very clearly far above the box into green. It disappears and then reappears a second later stuck to the box, so he has no time to react. You can see the confusion in his minor movement, and then he dies. That is unacceptable. That is game changing. It's round changing. It's momentum changing. Series changing. And those are the issues. That's why I'm happy that Optic is vocal about things like that, because that's a huge integrity problem. Like it throws an entire series, or at least an entire map, into question when you see things like that happening. So yeah, I can understand the frustration from SlasheR. I appreciate that he speaks up about it. People meme Optic because, oh, they're the only ones that complain. No, that's not true. They're not the only ones, but they are the loudest, and for good reason. And honestly, you have to look at that TJ clip, and that's unacceptable for things like that to be happening.
Emily, just before your point here, just to on May 24th, he tweeted, if you go on his timeline, it's the full clip there. And then his tweet immediately after is LMAO, I am expletive heated. So obviously,
I mean, that's like a throw your controller across the room moment for me.
Especially when everyone,
I'd be so mad, so mad, just like swearing up a storm, throwing stuff. But like my own gamer rage aside, I think I want to say it was also Rocker were similarly complaining about.
I think it was he had like 400 ping or something, like some wildly high amount of ping.
It might have been in their match, like against each other. But like this is like the one thing. I mean, the referees also, but like even before that, this is the one thing that we said like you absolutely have to fix in order for people to take this at all seriously. And it is another, this cannot continue at all. Like, it just can't, because it really, especially if it's on S&D, right? Because that's not a respawn mode. Like, that actually seriously affects the competitive fabric of that round.
Yes.
So, it's unacceptable. Like, there's nothing else to say about it than that. So whether it's continuing to add servers, whether it's like making sure that the servers they have are working, like you have to fix it.
There's a difference clearly between deliberately trying to throw a game or doing something like a human decision, as opposed to what happened here with TJ, which is a server determine or a resulting error that he cannot control, and therefore but has grave consequence, right? Like that is there's no two ways about it. I understand that we're in an extraordinary time and this is online and there will be hiccups, but things like this cannot determine a series, particularly it shouldn't determine a series at any point, but particularly when we get to the points where money is involved, like such that we are in the playoffs now, and these players stand to win $400,000 each in a final, and something like this happens, you will never ever hear the end of it.
No,
think about how close or like how important it is not to end in the bottom, right?
You start in losers bracket.
Like you cannot start in losers bracket. And Optic, for all of their early issues like on in the season, have looked really good. Like they've looked like a solid like 4 or 5 team in the league since for the past like 2 events, right? So like this is incredibly unfair to them as well, because they're legitimately trying to climb up out of that, and all of these matches have a lot of effect on what the standings are going to be going into that final tournament as well. So I mean, that's another thing to consider when you're thinking of something like a server affecting the overall outcome of a game.
Well, yeah, and it's also the concern of kind of the server issue compounded by ref standards or whatever guide the refs are going off of in terms of things like ping. Because once again, we go back to SlasheR. He referenced, I believe it was in the Florida tournament, I don't think it was at the most recent one, that he had a ref tell him he was on 100-something plus ping.
Yeah.
And the ref told him, yeah, that's not a problem unless you're getting red bars, which is clearly a ref who has no idea what he's talking about.
I think it was at the last tournament, actually.
Yeah, I think it was at Florida.
He tweeted that.
But it compounds that issue of an idea of either they have unacceptable standards that the refs are going off of for what is okay for ping, or the refs know so little about what's going on with online gaming that they think that's okay.
Yeah, that is not okay. Like that's
it's not okay.
No.
Especially for like playing League of Legends on that is awful. Like never mind something like COD where you really have to have that kind of ping in order to do anything important.
Is there?
But at the end of the day, I want communication. Just communicate with us, please.
I would love to know, speaking of communication, I would love to know the process in which the referees are chosen. Let me just give an example.
Make me a ref. Like seriously.
I bet you do a fantastic job. Here's where I'm coming from. For the longest time, and I know this is a sports example, but for the longest time in mixed martial arts, refereeing was very subjective. There wasn't really a standardized, like there were rules, but referees there wasn't really an established method in which to referee until someone like Big John McCarthy came, who's basically the grandfather of all MMA referees, and basically created his own course on how to become a referee, which has now become the standard way to become a referee in mixed martial arts. The reason I bring this example up is because I would love to know if such a thing exists for Call of Duty League referees. And the reason I say that is because this is not the first time we're talking about referee gaffes. And when I talked to the commissioner, Johanna Ferris, she said that we are confident that things like this will not come up in the future, but since then they have. So I'm wondering where the challenge lies as it pertains to, maybe incompetence is a strong word, but the concerns based on referee behavior. And I'd like to know how to fix that.
Well, that's something where I just give us some communication in regard to that. Explain to us the process you use. You don't even have to name names of anyone, but just explain to us the way you are with servers. Explain to us the process, as Arda was saying, that you go through with your refs, how they're prepared, the fact that maybe you're going to reiterate with your refs, like, hey, we just had a call with all the refs in the league to reiterate the points and the blah, 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 blah. Like, give us some communication to let us know that you understand that this is a concern of ours and that you're addressing it with the refs to make sure that you're all on the same page.
Yeah. And
that's
like let your players know too. Like this is like it has to feel terrible to be a player and have a referee tell you that. Like what do you even say if the referee's like, yeah, 100 ping is acceptable?
Yeah,
like,
if you're not getting red bars, it's fine.
Like what? Like I don't even know. Like if I'm a COD pro, I don't even know how I'd react to that. I'd be like, are you expletive kidding me?
That's not even a good way to diffuse a situation, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
no,
actually throwing gasoline onto the fire.
It's
What?
literally basically telling someone. So, fun fact, folks, in the history of the world, no one has ever calmed down when you told them to calm down. And that's essentially what the ref did. It was like, just calm down. Not helpful. Not helpful.
Oh my gosh.